Today, the topic of my discussion is the credit gap in Indian society, especially middle of the economy and downwards. As per one study, the gap of credit is around 300 billion rupees. The concept of credit gap is that there is a businessman, there is a need of money, but the credit providers are either not available or not accessible, or the provision of the credit is too cumbersome and procedural that the credit is not available to the needy person. This credit gap in Indian society to the tune of 300 billion rupees affects more MSMEs and lower business segments. What is the reason of that and what are solutions? This is the topic of discussion. After making you all understand what is the credit gap, let us come to the credit providers and their ecosystem. What happens? Provision of credit by banking institutions are NBFCs. Lot of documentation, KYC formalities are required, and these formalities and KYC formats have been designed in a such way that the ecosystem of informal sector or lower sectors of the economy are not able to fulfill these requirements, as they have been designed in a very corporate style, understanding the very standard norms and standard operating procedures. But that is a very standard kind of thing. But what happens in MSME and downwards, the documentation requirements cannot be fulfilled in the same way as the corporate sectors do. For example, a big corporate sector getting a credit of 100 crore rupees can easily get everything because they have all the documentations, their business models are having that kind of architecture, everything, KYC, and banks are very happy to lend them. But when it comes to the MSME downwards, the format of documents and other formalities, nuances, etc., KYC, they make it very difficult for them to get in time, and if they get, the interest rates are exorbitant. So what is the way out? In fact, this credit gap in India, what happens in India, the basic lending ecosystem is based on distrust. And rightly, because providing loans in insecure mode and realization being very cumbersome, it's very difficult for lender to recover the loans, because people may show the legalities, tricks of legality to repay the loan, and then lenders land in trouble with regard to their credit capital. So that is to be seen. So we have to solve two problems: how to make the credit gap filled. The other is how to make the credit worthiness of people, businesses, entities viable in terms of lending and realization of the capital back to the lender. So one such format is that there are certain OCAIN type of organization who have aggregated the data of the capital seekers, and they have done all the KYC in advance, and then they try to do a kind of intermediaries in supporting the loan requirement, capital requirement to the bankers, and in that process they make the process easier. But that is again a very not a much scaled profession, but yes, I do admire that is a good format. I am more interested in removing the credit gap in informal sectors, in small towns, small villages, small businesses. They may need maybe 10,000 rupees, etc. How to fill the gap of these capital requirements in those informal sectors to meet the credit gap. So one is that, as we all know, the banking system has its own constraints and problems. Aggregators may go to the businessmen. MSMEs, again, they are very higher sectors in the economy comparison to informal sectors. So how to fulfill the credit gap requirement at this level, which is informal sector? So only option which I do feel is legalization of the peer-to-peer lending and then collateralization guarantee. So peer-to-peer lending can be one option where in a same village a person can lend money to the needy, and the government should fix it with, after taking the risk elements and support system. What are the risk element? Risk element is that a loan is not repaid, or loan is delayed, or the interest is not paid. Collateral securities, maybe a check, maybe a property, but who is going to take legal action if somebody defaults? So here we need a legislation that peer-to-peer lending should be facilitated, but with a caveat that rates of interest should not be exorbitant. At the max, covering the credit risk, etc., should be around 18% annually, and then whatever the collaterals, the interest cap should be there, and prepayment should be an option. Secondly, collaterals given by the lendee needs to be given a legal framework. Suppose somebody want to give his motorcycle as a collateral to secure a loan of 50,000, 20,000 rupees. So in case he or she fails to provide the loan, then the lender should be given an option to monetize that security and recover his or her loan. This legality needs to be given a robust ecosystem, and which should not be litigated to make it a lengthy process and discouraging the lenders. Because when we are providing easy credit to the needy, we are providing credit to the business doer. Here we can do one thing, some social startup can come into action which can profile the lendees in advance in a village on the basis of informal knowledge, and a portal can be prepared at the village level that what is the borrowing capacity of this person, what is the credit worthiness of this person, what are the collaterals he can offer, and what is his credit history of that person. If that data is created at very small scale level, maybe at the village level, and then on that data basis with the legal framework provided by the government, if credit is provided, I think that can solve the problem, because peer-to-peer lending or social lending is the only way to fulfill the credit gap in India, especially in informal sector, so that lending is open and transparent. Secondly, the interest rate is not exorbitant. Thirdly, the lending business should be viable, not only in terms of the profit, but in terms of risk. If all these factors are taken into consideration with regard to credit gap situation in the informal sector in India, especially urban and rural areas, with regard to people at the bottom of pyramid, I think the lending gap can be minimized, and this will further boost and rather give a very strong momentum to the economy of India. Thank you very much.